Nobody is basically John Wick remade as a comedy starring Bob Odenkirk, and I'm down with that. It was written by Derek Kolstad, the creator of John Wick, and it feels like a parallel universe version of it. With a lean 92-minute runtime, it's a short and simple revenge film with some well-directed and creative action scenes involving its unlikely protagonist taking on swarms of Russian mob henchmen. I say this is a John Wick remake because it has many of the same beats. There's even that line in John Wick where he's called a nobody.
That fucking nobody is John Wick.
The cat in Nobody plays a significant role, though different than the dog in John Wick. There's also a next-door neighbor in Nobody who owns a vintage muscle car, which of course gets used for a fun action scene.
0 to 60, and I'm about to find the fuck out.
The John Wick films had their fair share of comedic moments, but Nobody takes it to new levels with Odenkirk's unforgettable line,
Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet, motherfucker!
I had a blast with this movie because it didn't drag on or take itself too seriously, and Bob Odenkirk is surprisingly believable as a hitman-type character. Odenkirk has reached legendary status at this point, from his sketch comedy work on Mr. Show to his now iconic portrayal of Saul Goodman, aka Jimmy McGill on Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Odenkirk suffered a heart attack last year filming Better Call Saul's 6th and final season, though he's recovered at this point. Even though there are plans for a sequel to Nobody, if Bob Odenkirk decides not to, I wouldn't blame him one bit. A sequel would be cool, but this works entirely well as a one-off film. Nobody is directed by Russian filmmaker and musician Ilya Naishuller, and this is his second film, the first being 2015's Hardcore Henry. You know, that movie that was like a first-person shooter game, but a movie? Naishuller hasn't made a film in 6 years, but he also has his rock band, Biting Elbows, who recorded songs for Hardcore Henry. That one only cost $2 million to make, and made back nearly $17 million, so it would be an example of an experimental idea done with a small budget that actually generated revenue if it didn't cost the studio $10 million to secure global rights to the film, so sadly it's actually considered a financial failure. It's not a great movie, it's a unique concept that is hard to hold up for 90 minutes with a silent protagonist and a one-note villain, but Hardcore Henry gets respect from me because it's something different, and also, it's really catered to gamers and action fans. If you're not in one of these two groups, Hardcore Henry might be a big eye roll for you. Nobody isn't going to be as divisive because it's much more conventional. It's also just a more engaging watch. Nobody cost $16 million and made $56 million back, so it did alright even when you factor in that studios split the revenue with the theaters, while also adding in for marketing and promotion. Nobody wasn't a runaway hit, but a good movie came out of a modest budget and at least recouped its cost, which I'm happy to see because Hollywood movies often burn through a lot of money needlessly. There's an emphasis on the mundane nature of protagonist Hutch Mansell's life. Quickly edited sections become tighter and tighter as the repetition of the days of the week bear on the slowly crushing nature of time itself. He works a monotonous manufacturing job at his father-in-law's warehouse, and his biggest struggle is taking out the trash on time. Hutch's wife is played by Connie Nielsen, who played Hippolyta in Wonder Woman 84 and Justice League, both films that I've reviewed, but I never mentioned her character in either review because she's really not that interesting. She's an Amazonian warrior who defends Themyscira. Her role is minimal here as well. She's Hutch's wife. The father-in-law is played by Michael Ironside. I still think of him as the one-armed teacher from Starship Troopers. The incident that sets off the story occurs when the protagonist's home is broken into and he scares off the intruders with a golf club, immediately implying that there is something deeper going on with this everyman. Yet, when the cops show up, Hutch is seen as a failure for not being aggressive enough.
Did you even take a swing?
She had it.
Could have taken her, Dad.
It's not until the fight scene on the city bus later on that we really see his full potential. This is a visceral hand-to-hand scene with creative choreography. It's a role I wouldn't have pictured Bob Odenkirk in, but it works in the same distinctively masculine power fantasy way that the John Wick films do. Because Hutch works for his wife's father, he's somewhat emasculated by nepotism, and he's trying to buy the company from his father-in-law, but can't seem to offer enough money. In every way, he is average and unexceptional. His life has no meaning, and he doesn't know what to do about it. Nobody also reminds me of David Cronenberg's A History of Violence, which was based on a graphic novel and starred Viggo Mortensen. It's this same idea. An everyman character is forced to defend his family, and it turns out he's an ex-assassin. I thought it worked really well in that movie too, so perhaps this is just a storyline that really appeals to me. If you like a good action comedy, I give Nobody a strong recommendation. I've given you the setup though. There will be a few spoilers ahead, so check the movie out if you can. That's up to you, but we're moving ahead. The ironic use of classic pop music during scenes of intense violence is nothing new. It's a staple of the work of Scorsese and Tarantino, who have clearly influenced this film. It's handled well here, though not entirely unique. The music selections aren't incredibly obscure. Nina Simone's Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood opens the film, a good choice, a favorite artist of mine. Luther Allison's grooving Life is a Bitch accompanies Hutch as he embarks upon his journey of revenge. Sinatra's It's Gotta Be Me precedes the fight on the bus. Louis Armstrong's What a Wonderful World plays as Hutch burns down his own house and eyes his neighbor's muscle car. Pat Benatar's Heartbreaker accompanies the principal car chase scene. Andy Williams sings The Impossible Dream as Hutch tears through the villain's safe house on a rampage. And Let the Good Times Roll plays during the credits. The pop songs accentuate the film's key scenes, while there is a more conventional electronic score that mainly accompanies the action scenes. The brooding Russian mob boss villain is basically the same one from John Wick, played here for humor a little more. The protagonist even burns all of his money at the end of the second act, just like in John Wick. I suppose since around 2014, we've come back around to having Russians as the go-to villains again. This character is played by Alexei Serebryanko, one of the highest paid actors in Russia, although I've never seen a film with him in it because I'm woefully unknowledgeable about Russian films outside of the classic works of Tarkovsky and Eisenstein. This actor is apparently not a big fan of Putin, so we do share that in common. I will say that Serebryanko has a great musical number to introduce his character. Of course, there's also a big shootout scene at the end, and it's pretty awesome. It involves Bob Odenkirk, RZA as Hutch's brother Harry, turns out he was the mysterious voice on the secret radio, and Christopher Lloyd as Hutch's gun-toting badass father. Your classic white guy, black guy, old white guy team. In The Tomorrow War, it was Chris Pratt, Sam Richardson, and J.K. Simmons, but I like the team up at the end of Nobody more. Then there's the part where Bob Odenkirk wipes away the number of days since an accident. It's all very playful and also exceptionally violent, which some people might take an issue with, but I really don't think that violence in a movie or a video game is what causes violence in real life. The human race has always been violent, even more violent before the invention of these forms of art. I like Nobody. It may not be that deep or emotional, and although it kind of retreads the same ground of the first John Wick film, it accomplishes this in a distinct way with a pop soundtrack, quick music video style editing, and a refreshing sense of humor and self-awareness. The plot may be simple, but there are well-directed, excessively violent action scenes combined with a playful sense of humor that makes Nobody stand out from many other films in the revenge subgenre. It's definitely more mature and fully realized than Hardcore Henry was. I'd say at least a 7. I'm tempted to bump it up to 8 because of how much I love the John Wick franchise and the acting of Bob Odenkirk, but I'll keep it at a solid 7. I'd rate the John Wick films higher because they came out first and had the same writer, so in its conception, Nobody does fall short on the originality side. It's still an entertaining movie that's rewatchable because some of the dialogue and gags are just that much fun.
I never met a black Russian before.
Yeah. I get that a lot.
Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet, motherfucker.